to the synagogue bombing in Melbourne, the firebombing, which of course is now referred to as a terrorist incident. Peter Dutton was at the facility today. You saw him being interviewed by my colleague and friend Sherry Markson in the previous hour. Highlights of that are up at skynews.com.au. But where's the Prime Minister? That's the alternative Prime Minister. That's the bloke who's currently level when it comes to the preferred Prime Minister. But where is the actual Prime Minister? Well, he was in Canberra today, making a series of national security announcements, but how could these not have been made from Melbourne? We got nonsense from the Prime Minister today that the only reason he had to go to Canberra was so he could have the meetings have to be face-to-face, please. We live in a world where it was run over the computer for a couple of years. This guy pretending that he doesn't have any path to where Peter Dutton was today, earlier than later in the week, is, of course, garbage. Now, this is what the Prime Minister had to say about why he is punting turning up at the venue until later in the week, when I'm assuming that their hope is that you are already thinking about the next cricket test, not whether the Prime Minister has turned up to a national event like this.
Because I had commitments in Perth. Be very clear, this happened very early Friday morning. We've had these meetings today. You can only be in the room here in Canberra getting national security briefings if you stick to the National Security Committee. I had the appointments in Perth. Obviously I was there for 3 days. That was long arranged.
Now, I will trust people like my friend and colleague Peter Credlin to be able to speak to this with greater specificity. But remember, until very recently, the Foreign Minister of Australia lived in Perth. Before that, the opposition leader, Kim Beazley, lived in Perth. Presumably, there is some sort of secure facility for people to be able to make the phone calls that the Prime Minister decided to make today, or to have his face-to-face meetings today. The reason he is delaying turning up at the venue is because he wants to make all of these announcements as a way of trying to temper what will inevitably some of the emotion that will be headed in his direction when eventually he turns up. But I'll have a feeling that the frustration that has been building for months with this Prime Minister, with the whataboutism, with the 50-50 of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, please. But as I said, when this Prime Minister should have been on his private jet the second he heard about this, on his way back to Melbourne directly, or Canberra then Melbourne, the Prime Minister, of course, as you will have heard by now, spent about 90 minutes playing tennis. Now, is he allowed to play tennis? Obviously. But this is the bloke who made quite a lot of noise about the priorities of the previous Prime Minister about what was or wasn't urgent to go to. Now, today he was out and about saying I needed to get some exercise, but we can park this now because there is some brand new reporting from Paige Taylor uploaded 1 minute ago to the Australian's website. The Prime Minister did not get on a plane because on Friday night, Mr Albanese was at a star-studded attraction, and he was the main attraction of the Federal Labor Business Forum's end-of-year networking event. Mr Albanese spent the night with party donors just hours before briefings on the firebombing and called Israeli President and the Israeli President over the incident. The Australian understands the drinks went for about 90 minutes. The event was designed to allow business to pay a premium to have access to senior ALP figures such as the Prime Minister. So that was just before. Then, of course, the early hours of the morning, we find out what has taken place. And even though the time zones might be different, news is instantaneous these days, and certainly when you are the Prime Minister, news travels even faster than at the speed of television, radio or the internet. Well, the Cottesloe Tennis Club confirmed that they were made aware on Saturday at 2 p.m. that the Prime Minister would be turning up to play his tennis. He arrived at about 2:30. He stayed for 2 hours. Now, is this the only form of exercise that the Prime Minister possibly could have engaged with? Of course not. Is this the only thing that he needed to do? No. The reason he's in Perth is to make money for the Labor Party, to make announcements like he did over the weekend post the firebombing of $1.5 million to save a sculpture by the sea. He then creates a scenario that should have been able to be done via emergency contact on the phone Friday, Saturday or Sunday. He waits to go to Canberra on Monday.